So at this point, I'm going to invite Sheila Masinde, who is the Executive Director, Transparency International Kenya, to give the opening remarks. Welcome, Sheila.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lillian, and everyone who has spared their Thursday morning to join us today for this virtual launch of the County Governance Status Report. It's really refreshing to see a lot of familiar names, many of whom we've not met physically for quite a number of months due to the current pandemic situation, but it's great to still meet virtually. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And first of all, just to join my colleagues in welcoming you all to this forum. Ordinarily, by now would have had some nice breakfast, some tea, high tea to break the ice, but this is really the new normal and that we are embracing, and I hope that we'll still be able to interact effectively here. Allow me to introduce Transparency International Kenya for those engaging with us for the first time. TI Kenya is a not-for-profit organization. We've been working in Kenya since 1999, and our aim is really to develop a transparent and corruption-free society through good governance and social justice initiatives. Our vision is that of a corruption-free Kenya, and our mission is to champion the fight against corruption by promoting integrity, transparency, and accountability at all levels. So with the support of the Embassy of Sweden, Nairobi, through Diakonia Kenya, TI Kenya has been implementing the second phase of a project, which we call the Democracy, Governance, and Human Rights Program. And the overall project goal is to really ensure increased respect for human rights and strengthened democratic governance at both the national and local level. Now, under this program, TI Kenya has been able to conduct an update of the county governance report, which was published in 2016, December. And the aim of this report, or rather this study, is really to assess the status of governance at the county level, particularly in regard to integrity, service delivery, accountability, and transparency. Following the launch of the report in 2016, we were able to disseminate it widely across different parts of the country, specifically at the county level. And we also still felt the need to come back and just try and update 3 years following that study to just see what has been the progress in terms of putting in place systems and structures that will promote transparency and bring the today product of a survey that we were able to conduct. And unfortunately, due to the current pandemic situation and the social distancing and physical distancing protocols, this report has been delayed, but we're still happy that we are able to launch it today. And you can trust me that the recommendations and the findings are not sanitized. They're not to encourage you to sanitize and ask wherever you are. But for this, we are serving them candidly as per the feedback that we have collected from Kenya. I don't want to say much more about the report at this point, but because we to present my on some of the and recommendations, but maybe just add that we have adopted in conducting this study, we have adopted a multifaceted approach in the assessment. We've gotten insights from Wananchi and also the duty bearers at the county level with regards to how the principles of transparency, accountability, and transparency are manifested practically in Kenya's devolution context. We trust that this report shall be useful as a reference point for all of you, that the recommendations will be actualized. At least on our part, we are going to disseminate the findings and the recommendations broadly to particularly push for improvements in the levels of transparency, accountability, and service delivery at the county level. And we note also that the collaboration between all stakeholders is very critical and is necessary towards more transparency and accountability county and all of you will be really important to push forward to fruitful engagements throughout this short session that we'll have this morning. Karibuni. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Phila, for those remarks. I want to welcome those who have just joined us. You're welcome to this virtual forum for the launch of the County Governance Status Report. Kindly do introduce yourself in the chat box. Do let us know your name, the organization you're representing, and the county you're coming from. We've just started. So at this point, I would like to introduce and to invite Fidialis, our research executive, to present the background of the study. Welcome, Fidialis.
Thank you, Lillian. Good morning, everyone. My name is Fidialis, as Lillian has said. I will take you through a brief of the background of this study. So this study is called the CGSR. You will hear us calling it the CGSR. In full, it means the County Governance Status Report, which is a study that assesses the levels of accountability, transparency, integrity, and service delivery within the counties. So we conducted this study the first time in 2016, but since then, there has been changes in the county governance following the 2017 general election. So we needed to update our parameters forming this study. And that's why we felt that we needed to go back to the field to update all the indicators that were forming the county governance status report. So someone might ask what informed this study or why are we doing it? So after the promulgation of the 2010 Constitution, there was transfer of powers and resources to the counties from the national government. So these also required establishment of mechanisms to safeguard public resources and also ensure that services reach Mwananchi at the grassroots level. And when you are talking about the services, it is the functions that are devolved in the part 2 of the fourth schedule of the Constitution, the 2010 Constitution, where we have the 14 functions that were devolved to the counties. So we were also, as you can see, we were also assessing service delivery. So we wanted to see and to hear from the citizens how they rate the delivery of these services by the counties to them. So devolution also introduced the two arms of county government. So we have the legislative and the executive arm. So for the county executive, we have the county governor, we have the deputy governor, the county executive committee members, and the county public service board. And on the side of the assembly, we have the MCAs, the speaker clerk, and the county assembly public service board, county public service, I mean. So for these two arms, they interact in governance where county assemblies largely do representation, oversight, and legislation, while the county executive is tasked with the implementation of legislation and management of and coordination of county administration and also service delivery. So again, we have the Senate, which acts as the link between the county governments and the national government. So it does legislation on issues touching the counties and also deliberates on matters touching revenue sharing between the national government and the counties. So for the scope of this study, we were looking at accountability. For accountability, we were looking at how accessible the leaders are. We were also looking at the leaders' performance. So here we had the citizens rate the performance of their leaders. We were also assessing how likely these leaders can be re-elected at the counties. So what this assesses is that you find a very positive correlation between the leaders' performance, how they are rated, and their likelihood of re-election. And the leaders that are rated poorly, you will also see that their re-election rate is also low. And we were also assessing partly on gender, and we were asking people how likely are they to vote for women leaders. Then under the transparency, we were assessing access to information, whether citizens are able to receive information from the county, and how much the county disseminates to the citizens. We're also looking at issues pertaining public participation. Have people ever heard of meetings convened by counties? Do they attend such meetings? And we are also checking citizens' access to media so that we can know even their most preferred way of communication. And on service delivery, we seek to assess the citizens' ratings of services provided by county governments, and also their priority services. What do they deem to be of priority within the counties? And we also heard from the executive the challenges that they face when they are delivering services to the people. Then on integrity, we are looking at the perceived level of corruption at the counties, and also the projected level of corruption within a period of the past 1 year and in the coming 1 year. And also we were checking the integrity management initiatives that have been put in place by counties. So I will touch on the methodology, and our executive director will present the findings and the recommendations. So for the 2016 study, it was done for 47 counties, but in this study, we were only able to do for 16 counties. Other factors considered, like the budget and such. So for the sampling, we were targeting, our target population was Kenyans above the age of 18 from the 16 counties that we sampled. They are well outlined in the report, but they represent the former 8 provinces, which are the 8 regions in Kenya. So each and every region is well represented in this study. So then from there, we calculated a detailed calculation of how the sample was obtained is also contained in the report, but we interviewed a total number of 2,422 citizens. We were also talking to county government officials, that is the county for the county executive. We were talking to the county secretaries or their representatives, and we also were seeking to speak to, we sought to speak to MCAs, that is the members of county assemblies, and the clerks or the speakers within the counties. That is within the 16 counties for the 2019 study. So for the data collection, we conducted data collection through face-to-face interviews with our team of qualified research assistants, assisting us to collect this data. And then this data was analyzed through the statistical package for social sciences, or what is popularly known as the SPSS. Then we have the analyzed data presented in tables and figures, as you see in the main report. So, and as I said, it had a national representation because we had representatives or people all over the country from the 8 regions in the country. So that's it on a brief background of the study. And I will get this back to Lillian to tell us how we move on from here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lydia. Explanation as to the background of the study. So at this point, allow me to invite Sheila to present the findings and the recommendations of the report. Welcome, Sheila.
Thank you very much, Fidialis and Lillian. With the explanation by Fidi in terms of the methodology, get the background and the context of the study and some of the parameters we're looking at, I'll just go straight to the key findings. Now, starting with accountability. So really the study in terms of looking at issues around accountability was premised that at the center of accountability is the accessibility of leaders by their citizens and keeping them on toes to deliver their functions. That is the ability of citizens to be able to hold their leaders accountable. And as you know, accountability is listed as one of the national values and principles of good governance under Article 10 of our great Constitution of Kenya. I don't know whether, are we screening? Can you screen the findings? Yeah, thank you, Fidialis. We can go to the fourth slide. And as you can see on the screen, that is a summary of the fourth slide. That is a summary of some of the findings we found under the section on accountability. And I will just delve into the specific findings in the subsequent slides. So we'll address all this in the subsequent slides. So we can skip to the next one. One of the questions we posed to citizens is whether they had contacted their elected leaders within the past 12 months about a problem or to present some of their views. As you can see on the screen, the results show that MCAs were the most contacted leaders at 24%. But however, that is a decline of about 12 percentage points from the findings of 2016, where we had 36% of citizens saying that they had contact with their MCAs. And across the board, you'll see a reduction in the number of citizens who reported that they had contact with their leaders. And you'll see, for instance, only 11% had contact with the MP from 19% in 2016, 7% in 2016, and now 4% contacting their women rep. For the governor or deputy governor from 15% in 2016 to 6%. And of course, we are going to address that in some of our recommendations, but it is quite worrying that the proportion of citizens contacting their leaders is generally low across all roles and has dropped since 2016. And of course, you can see that the senators and the women representatives have been the least contacted by the citizens. We can go to the next one. So in terms of the leaders' performance ratings, we asked citizens to rate the performance of their leaders, and the respondents rated the performance of senators and the women representatives as the lowest, on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being very poor, 5 being very good. Senators and women representatives were given the score of 2, and that was the same score that was given in 2016. So, and the performance of the others, governors, senators, and the governors, MCAs, and the MPs was largely rated as average. And I think just also in relation to what Fidialis had mentioned, you find that the results of both the leaders who are rated lowest, that is the senator and also the women representative, you can correlate that to the number of people who are also contacting them. So perhaps maybe there's a question around, do people understand the roles of these leaders? Does limited engagement with some of these leaders also color the perceptions of, or assessment of the performance of these leaders? So that's something also, again, to ponder about. We can go on to the next slide. In regard to the performance of the members of the county assemblies, we actually asked the MCAs that we talked to give their own rating. They are also rated by the county executive committee members, and they are also rated by the speakers and the clerks. And as you can see, generally, the MCA's performance in terms of oversight was rated as average by both them, in their own ratings, by the CECs and also the speakers. In terms of their legislative functions, the MCA's ability to pass and amend laws, also rated as average, 4 of their own rating, that is the MCAs and the speakers, and then 3 by the CECs. And then in terms of the representative function, also rated as good. And that really was in regard to the MCA's ability to represent their constituents. You can go to the next one. We also asked the MCAs to rate the performance of the county executive. So those are the parameters, or those are the functions we're really looking at. The executive's performance in implementing legislation passed by the MCAs, their performance in regard to service delivery, performance in budget preparation, in regard to local revenue generation and collection, which you'd see was rated as poor, and as well as the accountability in the use of public funds, also rated as poor, and the other functions were rated as average by the MCAs. It's worth noting that the county executive rated the MCA's ability to play their overall oversight role as good, yet this is not reflected on their own performance as county executives, where the mandate to ensure that they perform well is bestowed on the MCAs. So again, something to ponder about. In terms of the leader's likelihood of re-election, and this is an interesting one, most of the respondents said, that is actually 60%, said that, that's not really most, but more than half of the respondents said that they were unlikely to re-elect their women representative. And as you can see, the women representative is the one highlighted colored in is it turquoise blue? Guys good with colors can advise us further. So in 2016, we had the result was the score was 72%. This year at 60%. So I guess an improvement. Maybe it would be good to actually correlate this and go back to the actual outcomes of the 2017 elections to see how many women representatives were actually elected, or MPs or MCAs, as per the findings that we had in 2016, which was just a year, actually just months before the general election of 2017. I think it's also important to note that 57% of the respondents said that they were likely to elect their current senator. So again, you can see that trend for the woman representative and the senator, least likely to be elected of all the elected leaders, least contacted by the citizens. So again, maybe something to ponder about, and also in terms of how their performance was rated. They also rated as the least performing of all the 5 elected leaders that we assessed among citizens. So again, something to ponder in regard to understanding of their role, their accessibility, and so on. In terms of accountability and the likelihood of electing women leaders, and this is I think would be a good finding for all Kenyans, as we are currently clamoring for full implementation of the 2/3 gender rule as promised and well articulated in our constitution. As you can see, 65% of the respondents said they are likely to elect a woman MP. 68% said they were likely to elect a woman MCA, 61% a woman senator, and 65% a woman governor. I wish we could take this to the bank in 2022 and ensure that we actually see these outcomes in the next general elections, so that we are able to meet the 2/3 gender principle as articulated in the Constitution. We can now move to issues around transparency. And those are some of the summary findings, particularly in regards to issues around access to information, a key concern that many Kenyans still feel that they're not able to access critical information from their county governments. There's also concerns around how, within what period they're able to access information, for instance, on forums on public participation. There are also concerns around, the channels that are being used for passing or relaying this information. Are they effective? Are citizens able to access them? I think there are also concerns around the kind of documents that citizens are able to access. But we are happy to note that the Constitution emerged as the most popular document among those who have been able to access, relevant public documents. I think if we were to break it down, you can look at that current slide in terms of how citizens were able to receive information. And that is really interesting because I know a number of us are now going into social media, using Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, Instagram, and so on to be able to relay critical information to the public. But as you can see, only 15% said that they're able to access information through the social media, and a large bulk of the respondents said they've been getting their information through mainstream media, that is radio, the television, newspaper, what we have been calling the traditional, sources of media. And I think there's been perceptions that accessibility or popularity of this media has been diminishing over the years. And then there's another key channel has been social gatherings, the burials, the weddings, the churches, and so on. I do know that this is because many of these are well attended by politicians as well, but 26% said that they're able to get a lot of the information through social gatherings. And then of course there's been the really traditional form of receiving information, that is through word of mouth, relatives, friends, and neighbors. So that's also quite interesting. And you can see how that can be applied in future because there have been challenges in terms of sharing information to the public. In terms of citizens' access, you can move to the next slide, which is talking about citizens' access to specific media, looking also at penetration of certain media and accessibility by citizens. So a lot of citizens have access to the mobile phone at 95%. It was at 80% when we last checked in 2016. So there's a growth there, 15 percentage points. Radio also, increasing by just 2 percentage points from 80% to 82%. We have television also growing quite widely from 59% to 75%. Maybe that can be attributed also to enhanced or intensified rural electrification programs. And then there's a social media also growing from 35% to 60%. And then newspaper by 1 percentage point from 41% to 42%, so which was really a marginal increase from 2016. In terms of, we also asked citizens, and just because we wanted to establish the information sharing symmetry between the county governments and citizens. And we specifically asked county government officials how they conveyed different types of information to the public. And the results really show that 31% of the county governments shared project progress reports on social media, while more than half, that is really at 59%, stated that they shared tender advertisements Sorry about that. Technology. Can someone confirm that you can now see me and hear me?
Yes, Sheila.
Okay. Okay, we'll pick up quickly from where we left, and hopefully there'll be no interruptions, so we'll try to move a little faster. As I was saying, that The study also sought to establish the information sharing symmetry between the county governments and the citizens. And we specifically asked county government officials how they conveyed different kinds of information to the public. And the results show that 31% of them said that they conveyed project progress reports through social media. There was also more than half, 59%, stated that they shared tender advertisements through the newspaper. But then again, questions, when you relate that to the previous slide on how, the penetration of different types of media among citizens, and also just accessibility and what kinds of channels are popular among citizens, then then comes a question of how accessible were these documents, given that they were shared through, less popular or less used or accessed channels of communication by the county government. So again, something to think about, what would really be critically the best or most strategic channels to share information to ensure that citizens access critical information from the county government, and they then, through that, are then able to participate fully in decision-making processes or other governance actions in the county. So we can move on to the next slide. As I mentioned, in regard to citizens' awareness of vital documents, we asked, what documents are they aware of? Are they aware of, that are really critical in their participation in the governance process? So slightly more than 3/4 of the respondents that we spoke to said that they were aware of the Constitution. That is 76%. But then on the other hand, we also asked them, yes, you're aware, but do you have a copy of the document? So in 2019, 31% said that they have a copy, 76% were aware, but we also know that this is an increase from 2016, where 87% said they were aware, but also note that there's a drop in the number of people who are aware about the Constitution. Maybe also could be an indication that there's a growing number of people, especially the young people, who we have had in the last few years, but then perhaps there's been limited civic education to just give them awareness on the Constitution and its provisions and so on. So in 2016, 13% said they had a copy of the Constitution. 31% now say they have a copy. So I think that is good. And maybe we see how we make sure that the number of people who are aware and the number of people who have copies are well tallied in future. In regard to the other critical documents, you will note that only 20% said that they are aware of the County Integrated Development Plan, which is a very critical document for planning at the county level. And then you compare that with 2016, where 17% said just a growth of 3 percentage points. So really indicating that there's really need for much more civic education efforts. And also just speaks again to the issue of public participation. How many Kenyans
Sorry, we seem to have lost Sheila again, but she's getting back.
I'm sorry again. I think we'll just have to see how we conclude this very quickly. So I think we can move on to the next slide before the network decides to misbehave again. And the next slide is about citizens' awareness of meetings convened by the county government. Again, speaking to the issues around public participation. Now, only 27% of Kenyans said that they heard about a public participation meeting announced by the county government. we compare that with 35% in 2016. So again, there's a drop in the number of Kenyans who are receiving information about public participation meetings that are being conducted by the county government. And then we went further and asked, okay, so you heard about this meeting, but did you attend? So only 42% of those who had heard about the meeting were then able to attend, and they give various reasons why they were unable to attend, including short notices, that they were busy, because again, the feedback that we got is that sometimes these meetings are held at times of the day when citizens are not able to attend. They're busy trying to earn an income. And so again, some thought into what are the best or most convenient times to be able to engage citizens by the county government or in issues around governance. So I think that's also something to ponder. We can go quickly to issues around service delivery. And really those are the summary findings. And I will go into the specific in the consequent slides so that we can move a little bit faster, because the slides address each of those findings. If we can move on to the next slide, which talks about the most pressing problems counties should address. In regard to the key issues that Kenyans felt should be addressed in regard to service
Apologies, once again, we seem to have lost Sheila. Before she rejoins us, kindly feel free to note your comment or your question in the chat box, and we will engage after the presentation of the findings and the recommendations. So do feel free to raise your question or your comment or feedback in the chat function. The technical issue is being, okay.
Thank you, Lillian. As we wait for Sheila to rejoin, we can continue with the presentation of the findings. So she was at this point where we have the most pressing problems that the counties should address. And the citizens felt that the roads infrastructure within the counties and even the traffic management was of top priority to be addressed. And the other key thing was the health services and then the provision of water. Those were the top three. So when you compare to 2016, you see that the roads remain a top problem. But health has moved to the second place, and this has been a major concern by Kenyans. And also the provision of water is still a major challenge within the counties. Then when we go to the next part, where we sought to hear what challenges that the executive, what are the challenges that the executive face when they are delivering services to the people. One of the key challenges was inadequate funds, and I will invite Sheila to continue from here. I think she's back. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fidialis. Those are the challenges of technology. I think you're all used to it. Have you muted? Are you muted? Mute your mic and so on. I think it's the new nomenclature we're used to in this new normal. But I'm now able to join from my phone. Hopefully I'll have uninterrupted network, and then we can then continue. From where Fidialis has stopped, I think we can now move on to the key findings around integrity, because we also posed specific questions seeking to investigate citizens' experiences and their perceptions about corruption at the county level. So perhaps we can move to the next slide. Oh, before that, I think it's critical to note that as part of the, in just seeking to understand the citizens' experiences on service delivery, we also asked them about the actions they took after any experiences with bribery or poor services that were delivered. And the responses we got is that 15% complained about a poor service from a government office, and 8%, just 8% complained a bribery experience at a service delivery point. And that was really a drop from 2016, where we had 16% complaining about a bribery experience at a service delivery point. And I think it actually just tallies if you've been able also to look at other studies that have been done as well by the EU, including the report that they issued last year on the National Survey on Corruption, which also decried the low level number of Kenyans that are reporting, making any reports about corruption when they encounter them at different service delivery points. So we can go to the slide on integrity. As I said, one of the other parameters that we looked at, and this is the last parameter, we talked about accountability, transparency, service delivery, and now we're on the fourth one, on integrity. So we asked, citizens, really what were their experiences and perceptions about corruption at the county level, and also their views on the past level of the level of corruption in the past year, projected level of corruption in the next year. And we also assessed the efforts that have been put in place by both the county executive and the county assembly to promote ethics and also to prevent corruption. So in terms of the perceived level of corruption, a number of Kenyans, that is 66%, said that they felt that it had actually increased in the last 1 year. That was more than 2/3 of the people that we surveyed. 13% felt that it had remained the same, while 16% said that it had increased, while 4% said that they did not know. We also asked them to, just give us a sense of, where they felt, what they felt would be the levels of corruption in the next 1 year. And one of the, I think it was really interesting. Thank you. That is one of the other experiences we have in these virtual spaces. But I was just talking about the projected level of corruption, that we had 55% of the respondents saying that it would increase in the next 1 year. 12% said it would remain the same, while 21% were optimistic and said that they felt that it would decrease. As I mentioned, we also sought to just really evaluate the integrity management initiatives that have been put in place at the county level, in all the 16 counties that we assessed. So we found that one of the most common initiatives that had been put in place was the formation of audit committees. We found that in 12 of the 16 counties surveyed. None for the county assembly. There was no audit committee in any of the county assemblies that we surveyed. Whether there was an integrity assurance officer, there were 8 in the 16 counties we surveyed, and then 3 for the county assembly surveyed. In terms of corruption reporting mechanisms, 11 for both the county executive and the county assembly. So 11 counties reported, or rather have corruption reporting mechanisms in place. Also related to that was whether there were any whistleblower protection mechanisms. And you'll know that this is something, again, that we have been calling for a number of years, that we need to have, strong whistleblower protection to give care. And the things we noted is that 7 of the counties have whistleblower protection mechanisms in place, and that is at the county executive level. And then 5 county assemblies had whistleblower protection mechanisms in place. 11 counties had an asset register, that's at the county executive level, none for the county assembly. There was also no conflict of interest register in any of the county assemblies we assessed. Same to no gift register for the county assemblies. But we had 10 counties, the conflict of interest register, and also a gift register. In terms of a complaints and feedback mechanism, 11 county executives had this in place, while 14 county assemblies also had a complaints and feedback mechanism in place. When you really look at these findings overall, you find that there's really a great need to ensure that we put in place measures, integrity management initiative measures at the county assembly, because you'll find of the different initiatives that were reported at the county executive, you'll find that only 4 of these kind of initiatives were reported at the county assembly, and in some cases, very few county assemblies reporting. So there's quite a bit of effort that we need to put in place to ensure that we build the integrity systems and the different initiatives in place to enable people to report, to have people in place who are providing oversight in regards to issues around integrity at the county assembly as well as the county executive. I think in conclusion, from the findings, you can see that accessibility to leaders is still a challenge. You've noted that only, the most contacted elected leader is a member of county assembly, but still only 24% of Kenyans have reported that they have contacted their MCA. And of course, there could be various reasons why this is the case. But then we also understand that, for instance, MCAs have offices at the ward level, and that's really the primary unit of devolution or even of leadership. And so then there are again questions of what then can be done to enhance that engagement between leaders and people who elect them. Because without that engagement, without that communication, then Kenyans are then not able to effectively hold their leaders to account. So it is really important that perhaps leaders, elected leaders, even just set aside, you can simply start by just setting aside, a specific day, and which is then well communicated to citizens, when citizens know that they are available, whether it is mtandaoni or on phone or physically, best physically, because again, you can see that Kenyans still prefer traditional means of engagement. And if this is then well known to Kenyans, then they can then be able to reach out to these leaders. I think this would also help Kenyans to understand the different roles that this particular leaders are playing, and then can then be able to just appreciate and even just appreciate their performance, and as I said, just hold them to greater account. I think there's also a concern because there's been a slow progress, or rather there's a low number of Kenyans who feel or rather there's really a low number, not just about feeling, but there's a low number of Kenyans who have participated in governance processes. And yet, one of the objects of devolution, as articulated in the Constitution, includes to give powers of self-governance to the people, to enhance public participation, and so on. But that has not been attained because many Kenyans are still not participating in governance processes. So there's much that we need to do. Perhaps one key thing is that county governments, both county executives and the county assemblies, should strengthen their public participation units, and also be very strategic in terms of how they are engaging Kenyans, and use channels that are accessible and also popular and easy to use among citizens, so Kenyans are then able to get information on public participation opportunities and also just access information, because access to information is a key prerequisite for public participation. I think the other conclusion, as my colleague had shared, that health, road, and infrastructure services seem to be the most important to citizens, because they've raised that is, when they look at the issues around service delivery, those are the key concerns that they have. And so perhaps even in terms of how we ensure that we further devolve health services, we ensure that there's quality health services, expand UHC, the UHC initiative, that will also be important to ensure that Kenyans have access to health. And you can also see that Kenyans remain really pessimistic in the fight, in regard to the fight against corruption. 55% of Kenyans have projected that corruption would grow, the incidence of corruption would grow in the following year. So again, a bit of how do we ensure that Kenyans are optimistic? Because that optimism is also very important to ensure that we fight civic apathy, we ensure that citizens are not indifferent and actually participate in the fight against corruption, because this is again a collective effort and all Kenyans will need to be involved for us to effectively flatten the curve of corruption that we have witnessed in this country. I think I've already touched on some of the recommendations to the representation, but key being, as I mentioned, leaders should really set up and communicate specific days when citizens can be able to contact them and engage them and widely publicize this information. Civic education on the roles that different leaders, elected leaders play is really, really critical so that citizens are able to hold their leaders to account based on their constitutional roles and function. The other recommendation that has come out strongly is on the issue of public participation. And we have suggested that county governments should consider, the other activities, income generation activities or other activities that Kenyans are involved in when calling for public participation meetings, because a number of them said that when these meetings were called for, they were busy, they were at work, they were in the farm, and the timings were really not convenient for them. So we really need to find a time that is convenient for Kenyans, depending on the county, that then they'll be able to show up for different public participation forums and participate effectively. We had also mentioned that it's really important that county governments conduct thorough research on the various communication channels before using them. And you'll find that perhaps some channel that may be popular in a county may not be popular in another county, may not be accessible, or may not be, maybe has not deeply penetrated a particular county. Again, we also have to consider the different demographics in a county. Is it urban? Is it rural? Are we talking to youth? Are we talking to women, men, the aged, and so on? So there are different parameters that have to be considered, but we really need to be strategic in terms of how we're communicating and the channels that are being used to inform Kenyans about public participation fora, to disseminate critical documents that will empower Kenyans to be able to participate in governance processes. The other recommendation, which was key, and is that county governments should really invest in their public participation units as they look for strategic communication channels. But we also just really need to even look at how much are we putting, what resources in terms of technical, material, monetary are we placing on public participation at the county level. On civic education, as you can see, civic education is quite key, just so that Kenyans feel engaged in governance processes. So that is also quite key. And then the other thing that we noted, as I said, that integrity initiatives really need to be further established, particularly within the county assemblies. And we suggest that county governments should work with the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, for instance, to be able to fast-track appointment of integrity assurance officers as part of the integrity management initiatives. And then there are other recommendations that we have also given specifically to issues around service delivery that are contained in the report. And I know that it will be shared very shortly. Maybe you can go to the next slide, which is the final slide, I hope. And just also to share that all this information that we have presented today, and also the information from the 2016 survey of the County Governance Status Report, is actually in Portal. And as you can see on the screen, you can click there, you'll find the 2016 findings, and then you'll find the 2019 findings, because what I've presented is really just a summary, what we considered highlights regarding the concerns that Kenyans have had on various issues around devolution. But if you go to that portal for 2016 and 2019, you find a comprehensive documentation of the findings and also the recommendations for those two reports. And then you can also be able to compare the findings for each parameter that we have assessed. And so we invite you, if you want to get the detailed findings, to go to that link. Perhaps if you can just go back, I hope everyone has gotten that link. Yeah, so there's a link underlined in blue, cgsr.tikenya.org, and you can click on either 2016 or 2019 to get the findings for the counties assessed for each year. And maybe just to mention that for 2016, we were very ambitious, and we actually did assess all the 47 counties, but for 2019, we've only managed to assess the 16 counties because of resources and also the current situation on the ground. I think with that, I can conclude and hand back to Lillian. I know we are going into a session of Q&A or any other feedback that our participants may have, and then we can get other input from other stakeholders and generally all the participants that have any feedback to give to us. Thank you very much for your attention, despite some of the disruptions, and we look forward to further engagement and your input as we go ahead with the session. Asante.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sheila, for that presentation. Of course, Sheila was presenting on the findings and recommendations of the County Governance Status Report 2019. We're going to provide the link to the CGSR portal. We're going to write it down at the chat box so that participants are able to access it. So we're going to get right into the plenary session. So I'm going to hand over to my colleague Harriet to moderate the session. Harriet.
Thank you very much, Lillian. Thank you, Sheila Fidi, for taking us through the findings of the report. To all our participants, this is the time to get feedback, questions, queries, or comments on the study that we have just presented. So I'm opening up the floor for engagement. Please use the raise hand function. And when I call on you, you can then unmute. We already have two questions from there's Jack Agola and Warren H. Can I call on you to verbalize the query? Warren, are you on? Warren, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. It was a great presentation. I really learned a lot from your findings there. One of the things I had asked was on the, that you had a slide about citizens contacted, and it was showing a decrease from 2016 to 2019. And I was very interested in that and wondered how, what, if anything we found behind that data. I mean, it's an entirely, maybe not entirely new, but a newly elected group between 2016 and 2019, and just wondered, is it accessibility issues, or is it citizen satisfaction? Are they satisfied with the people they voted in, and the people are doing the job, or is it that the new people in office are unreachable? Thank you very much. It was striking, of course, the difference between 2016 and 2019. Just be interesting to know what's behind it. Over. Thank you again.
All right. Thanks, Warren. I'll take the question from Jack Agola. Jack, you have the floor.
So thank you, Harriet. Mine was more of a reaction than a question, but again, maybe I can just seek to understand better. We've talked about integrity management measures that have been put in place by counties, and I've seen a very impressive record from the counties that were involved in this survey. And I mean, very much in particular to understand from the way you are doing the survey, were you able to get, for instance, the views of citizens, maybe just to understand from them if they've been able to use these integrity measures? Because as much as we can have, for instance, whistleblower policies and corruption reporting and all that kind of mechanism in place, but I have citizens engaged in this kind of interview. What have they said concerning this kind of this mechanism? Have they used it before? Were they effective? Were they helped? Or is it that we just have documents or maybe measures in place, but they are not being used? So I just want to understand if this is something that you also considered while you are doing this survey. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jack. Anyway, I'll take one more question, and then we'll give Sheila Fidi a chance to respond. Please raise your hand if you have a question or a comment to make, and I'll give you a chance. Jacob Ngome. Jacob, you have the floor.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sheila Masinda. That was a good presentation. I'm Jacob Ngumi from Machakos County. My question goes to Sheila. The survey was done in 16 counties. Could we think of having a national survey so that we rank all the counties together? We assess the whole of the country as a whole, so that we may be able to have a national overview of the status of our governance in every county. And then after that, then we can rank them. We can have number 1, 2, 3, because the county governments will not understand unless they're given numbers. They are ranked poorly, or if the last number will be poorly, and the first number will be the most positive performance. When they rank that way, then they take action. They take action and they become more serious. But then that's question 1. Question 2 is about how can the survey be extended to cover other aspects which are not part of the initial survey. For example, you can go, there is a county assembly and the county executive. When you survey both arms of the county governments, are you able to have a correlation in terms of their functions, in terms of what you want to achieve? Because governance is both county assembly and county executive. So are you able to capture, to study both of the arms so that you can have a comprehensive county report or county rank, so that we can take action on that? Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob. Your audio was really poor. If you don't mind, just highlight the 3 questions you've asked on chat. We were really unable to hear part of what you were saying. I think I'll take 2 more questions.
You can get me now?
Just speak again. Or maybe you turn off your video and try it.
Oh, okay, sorry. I've asked 2 questions. One is, were you able to assess the whole country? You assess only 16 counties. Can you be able to extend to the 47 counties so that we have a comprehensive national report? And then you rank them in terms of numbers, 1, 2, 3, so that they see the failures and the success. The most positive and negative counties, government, so that they can become serious. When they see the numbers, then they take action. Number 2, have you been able to assess, how you can see whether you can be able to assess maybe in future the executive and the assembly in terms of governance, so that you have a combined county report or rank, which now can rank each county. We can rank the counties depending on the 2 arms of the government. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. There's somebody going by the phone they're using, Huawei Y9 Prime. You have the floor.
Hello.
Hello, yes,
Hello.
we can hear you.
Oh, thank you. My name is Honorable Adam Solanyasunya, member of County Assembly, and I'm also the National Deputy Organizing Secretary of County Assemblies Forum. And I've seen the reports, are very good reports. And I have also seen the cross-cutting challenges as regards access to education, water, infrastructure, health, and so on. But I would recommend that if you can segregate the counts in terms of regions, for example, or clusters. For example, there are big challenges as regards insecurity in pastoral areas. And this has become a major drawback in terms of implementation of development activities. And also delay of funds is another major challenge that we are experiencing across the 7 counties. because even up to now, although there was a delay in terms of Senate agreeing, but all through, since, for example, when I came in, because it's my second term, since 2013, national government has been delaying funds, development funds for all the counties. And so this is a big challenge besides the one that you have mentioned in the report. But I would like to, if it's possible, that you cluster like the pastoral counties, northern, northeastern, north rift, south rift. The insecurity is a major drawback. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that, Mheshimiwa. I will give a chance to Sheila and Fidi to respond to the queries, and then I'll take a second round of questions. We will all have a chance to ask questions. Sheila?
Thank you very much, Harriet, and the participants who have been able to raise some questions, and I've also tried to look at some of the written questions. So Warren asked a question about, just the trends in regard to citizens contacting their leaders and engagement with leaders, and he was just asking, is it due to officials' accessibility or civic satisfaction? I think there could be a mix of issues that we are looking at. And one of the things that we highlighted in the report, for instance, that why MCAs have remained, the highest contacted set of leaders is maybe due to the fact that, the wards are the basic units of leadership when it comes to, the devolution of power. They're smaller than all other elective boundaries, and so MCAs could be more accessible, but they also happen to have offices in all the wards and also attend most of the local functions, so making it easier for citizens to access MCAs than the other set of leaders. But then on the other hand, it could also be a sign of apathy, indifference, maybe a feeling of frustration, perhaps, that even if I contact, will there be any change, or will there be any difference in terms of, or will my complaint be addressed? And so it could also touch to apathy, really. I think it's something that it's worth further interrogation, to just perhaps look into trends around citizens' engagement with different sets of leaders, and so that we can be able to identify what specifically needs to be done, especially if we're dealing with issues touching on public apathy or indifference. The other question by Jack, I didn't quite get it. I don't know if it's the same question that he has posted on the chat, but he can clarify, and then I can be able to take it if it's the same question. But on Jacob's question, on the issue of, yes, then whether it's possible to have a national survey. As I mentioned, in 2016, we actually surveyed all the 47 counties. But this year, due to diminished resources, we're unable to go to assess and survey all the 47 counties, and that's why we just had a sample of 16. Of course, it is something that we would desire if we were able to get the resources, because we think this would be a strong reference point for all counties, and particularly just for peer comparisons, to be able to see what's working in county A vis-a-vis county B, and so on. So that is still an aspiration. We would still want, for instance, for the next county governance status study to encompass all the 47 counties, but for now it is just the 16. But we will put our best efforts to ensure that we capture more counties in future. I think there was another question on the chat. Harriet, if you allow me to just also touch on something that I noted on the chat from Chamosi, on what would TI do to ensure participation, to ensure the participation bill in some counties. I think maybe just to highlight that one of the interventions that we've had at the county level since the onset of devolution in 2013 was just advocacy for the public participation law at the county level. And we actually helped to develop a model public participation bill in 2013-14. And we have actually pushed for this bill in some counties like Busia, Kwale, Kisumu, and also Siaya, and continue to push for public participation laws in all the counties where we're working. And generally, we think that it would, and not just the public participation law, but also looking at public participation policy at the national level. And one of the things we have continuously called for is just having a public participation framework, starting from the national level and going into the county level. Maybe Fidialis, you also want to chip in, but as I check this question that Jack had raised.
Thank you, Sheila. I think there is a question on whether we have specific findings for each and every county. And as we shared, there is a link to a portal that has all those findings aggregated into different counties. So you can, when you click the cgsr.eikenya.org portal, you'll be able to click either the 2019, that is the most current study. You'll be able to click your county and see the specific findings related to the different indicators. So if you want to see public participation in your county compared to what other counties are performing in that indicator, you'll be able to do that from the CGSR portal. Then there was also a question on the counties that we assessed, and I will just read out the 16 counties that we assessed this year for the 2019 study. For the 2016 study, we were able to do the 47 counties, but this one we were not able to do the 47 counties, but these are the counties that we did for the 2019 study. So we have Nairobi, we had Mombasa, we had Taita Taveta, Garissa, there is Embu, Machakos, Nyandarua, Nyeri, Narok, Nakuru, Turkana, Uasin Gishu, Kakamega, Bungoma, Kisii, and Kisumu. That's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Fidi. Sheila, there was a question from Heshimiwa about clustering the counties. There was something about, yes, segregating in terms of regions and clusters. Does anyone have an insight on this or response to this?
Mm-hmm. So in terms of grading them, I mean, clustering them in terms of like the regional economic blocks, for instance. Yeah, I think that would, maybe perhaps that would be a good idea. As I mentioned, we would want to go to all the 47 counties and conduct this survey, because I think it would give a very strong point of reference for peer, peer comparison, and just to be able, because I know that with the regional, particularly with the regional economic blocks, there are efforts to set certain standards in regard to county governance. So if that is something that then supports, the setting of standards, that could also work. But obviously for now, we've only just been able to assess 16 counties. Perhaps that could be a possibility. We'll have to look also at the methodology in future, if that would then work out and how then that would best be presented. But that point is well noted, and we can look into it, of course, because we also wouldn't want to, we want to see how we want to improve this survey going into the future, and how we report and how we present. So we would want to see what the value that it would then add to this survey. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Sheila. We'll now take a second round of questions. Calling on Joshua Musimi, you have the floor.
Thank you. Mine is not a question, but I would like to make a comment. Going through the report, which I must say is well done, I realize that there is some weakness, and particularly on access to information, budget information to be particular. And what I wanted to commend is that all of us are aware that both the Constitution and the PFM provides that we should be able to provide information to the public on budget information. There are two levels. One is the public participation during the budget process making, and the second one is budget during budget implementation. The Office of the Controller of Budget comes into the latter. where we publish information on budget implementation. But I see a gap where members of the public or the citizens say that they do not have access on budget information. What I would expect the counties to do is to share information about the approved budget. I know they have been undertaking to make sure that there is public participation, but once the budgets are passed by the county assemblies, we see very little information coming out to the public. And therefore, I would request if we can be able to share this information. And it goes further to say that even when you are implementing projects and program, the information on the program and projects, the budget should be displayed even in a notice board for people to be able to look at it and even provide the oversight, what we call the social audit. So this is what I wanted to contribute. And there was a second issue that was raised by Mheshimiwa about delay of funds, which I feel still touches the Office of the Controller of Budget. I want to say that there's a number of reasons why there could be delays of funds. All of us know that currently we had the delay in the passage of the CARA, and that delayed funds. But we see also other times when funds to the counties delay due to different reasons. But the office has been trying to push and ensure that counties get their monies in time to be able to implement their budgets, to be able to implement their projects. And this is what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Joshua, for those perspectives from the Controller of Budget. Francis Ngeny, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
We can.
Thank you. It's just a follow-up on what Joshua said. It's all about the awareness of the documents. And for me, I'll be specific to the CIDP and the county budget. Looking at the findings, you realize that the percentage of the people who are aware about this document, the CIDP, it's very low. And this is a very important document for the county government in terms of the implementation of the budgeting for the projects. So I don't know what what is in place so that we get more awareness in terms of people knowing the importance of this document. And I want to go to the budget documents. Yes, I don't know if in the study or the survey that you did you go deep to find more, if people understand more on the importance of each and every document in the budget making cycle, because the importance is very key. Just knowing, because we realize most of our people just know about the budget estimates, that's the document that they know, but these other documents that come before reaching there, it's something that most of the people don't know in terms of the ADP, CPROP, the CFSP. I don't know if the survey went deep into understand or inquiring from people to know if they know more about the other budget documents. Another thing is if people really understand the analysis of these documents, because having a copy of that document is one thing, but being able to analyze and give maybe an input or a submission on that document is another thing. I don't know if the study or the survey went deep to understand if our people understand more in terms of the analysis of this document so that they can give their input. And my last question is the timely access to these documents. If, yes, people might be aware, but can they access it in a timely manner? Because all these documents in the budget cycle, the budget making process, they have timelines, like when are they supposed to publish and publicize? Because we realize that most of the counties by this time, most even have not like tabled their ADP for the next financial year. So sometimes for the people to be able to engage them from an informative way, the timeliness of the tabling of that document is very key. Thank you. My name is Francis from Nanti County Budget Champions.
Thank you, Francis, for those questions. I'll take one more question. There was a hand up from Mohammed. I don't know whether he's still on. Mohammed Bwana. Okay, he's not on. Any other person with a query or a comment that we can take at this point? All right. So I'll hand it back over to Sheila to respond to the questions. Jack has elaborated his earlier query. So Sheila, you can take that, and the three questions from Joshua on timely access of the documents, how the depth the survey went to gauge the understanding and importance of the documents that we have included in the survey. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the questions. Perhaps to start with the issues around, just the questions around the budget. First of all, just to again go back to the number of Kenyans who we spoke to and said that they are aware of the budget. Only 25% said they were aware of the budget, and even fewer have, no, actually 25% said they have a copy of the budget. So I guess that tallies is the number of people who are aware. But then the other critical thing we looked at in regards to understanding, although we didn't really pose the question of whether they understood the context, the contents of the budget or how to read the budgets, but we also just sought to understand how many counties have gone ahead to simplify, vital documents, by the county government. For instance, the CIDP and also the budget. So in regard to the simplification of the budget, we found that actually that 13 of the 16 counties we surveyed had actually made an effort to simplify. So I think that is good in terms of ensuring that Kenyans are then able to understand, because I think we know even for us, fairly, mobile, urban, educated Kenyans, you'll still find that among us, we largely struggle to understand financial documents produced by the government. And so it means that we really have to take extra effort to break down the contents of some of these documents. So for instance, the budget. So it's good that a number of the counties, 13 out of 16, have made efforts to simplify. It would be good to see, the whole scope of the 47 counties, how many have actually done that, because I think it's really important as a critical step to ensure that Kenyans are understanding and understand the stories behind the figures that they're seeing. Because one of the things that we have also noted is that if Kenyans do not participate at the budget development level, at the point where they're prioritizing projects, budgeting for it, then they are likely to participate in regard to holding, the government's duty bearers to account in relation to how monies allocated in the budgets have been used, and so then they will not then participate fully in the whole financial management cycle, including the audit process. So simplifying the budgets is very key, and I think we take your point. Perhaps we'll for future surveys, we'll also try to assess how many Kenyans actually understand the information, not just in the full budget documents, but also in the simplified budgets. In relation to the question that I see Jack has posted, if I can just allow me to go to the chat so I get it. He said he'd like to know whether the survey went a step further to interrogate if all citizens have been able to use the integrity mechanisms, and whether the survey went further to gauge the level of effectiveness of the available mechanisms counties reported to have in place. I think one, in regard to that aspect of the mechanisms put in place, what we did is we assessed and asked county governments to give us or to indicate the number of initiatives that they have in place. So that we did not interrogate citizens whether they've been able to use some of these integrity mechanisms. But though I know in some of the other studies that we have done, like the Bribery Index, we raise questions like, whether they have reported corruption, then you can then be able to assess whether they have actually used some of the mechanisms in place, such as the corruption reporting mechanisms. But for this study, maybe it's something also worth noting for future, just to further interrogate citizens whether they've actually been used. Because I understand where you're coming from, Jack. It's one thing to have the systems, the tools, the platforms in place, but then do citizens understand? Do they know the processes or the procedures in terms of using these platforms? And therefore, I think it's an integral question that we also should ask citizens, so that we actually just also gauge the efficacy and the utility of these platforms that county governments are investing in. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. Fidi, there is a question about how we arrived at the 16 counties. Please respond to that.
Thank you, Harriet. So for the question on the 16 counties, we would have wanted to go to the 47 counties, but based on the limited resources, we couldn't. So we selected quite a representative number, which is a third of the 47 counties, which brings us to 16 counties. So now on how we selected those specific counties and left out others, we identified that to make it nationally representative, we needed to go to the 8 regions within the country. So for each region, then 2 counties were randomly selected. We used what you call the multi-stage sampling. So then from the 2 counties, we randomly sampled wards within the various sub-counties. Then from there, we sampled the households within the specific wards. So that's how we selected the 16 counties. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Fidelis. We are still within the time for receiving further feedback comments. So this is the last call for any comment, feedback. Please raise your hand and we'll be able to call on you. Otherwise, if there are no questions, then we'll just move on to the next session to get reactions from different offices. Anyone with a question? Kuna mtu ambaye ana swali au maoni ambayo angependa kutoa? Huu ndio wakati wako. All right.
Hello, Harriet.
Yes, Jacob.
I have a comment. Are you as TI Kenya, are you able to share that report with the oversight bodies so that they can be able to work on the improvements in terms of putting systems in place within the county governments? I'm talking of EACC, I'm talking of Council of Governors and maybe a CAJ and other bodies. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob. Kuna mtu mwingine ambaye ana swali or a comment, one last comment? Okay, Sheila.
Yes, Jacob, definitely. The one thing that we're going to embark on after this is obviously to disseminate this report far and wide, and at the county level, with the county executive, with the county assemblies, and not just the ones that we surveyed across the country. And we also share it with all the independent commissions, the oversight agencies, Parliament, Senate, all government institutions, because we feel that if you look at the recommendations, there's a part that needs to be played by all stakeholders, and not just government, by the way, even ourselves as civil society, particularly in relation to civic education and just enhancing public participation measures at the county level. So we will disseminate this report far and wide, and particularly embark in a process to push for the adoption of key recommendations. We may not be able to push for all the recommendations, and that is why we ask for a collaborative effort, of all stakeholders to be able to push for these recommendations that will help us see greater levels of integrity, accountability, transparency, and improved service delivery at the county level. So we will also reach out to you, Jacob, utatusaidia kusambaza ripoti hii. Asante.
All right. Thank you, Sheila, for that. So now, Job, thank you for the comment you have put on adding a recommendation around delayed release of funds to counties. noting it's a key challenge faced by the executive in dispensing services. Thank you. I think also echoing what the representative from the Controller of Budget had also raised. Fidelis has noted that down. So I want to take this chance to just invite general observations from the three key groups of stakeholders represented in the survey: the assembly, the executive, and the oversight bodies. We can see there was representation from the county secretary of Kakamega. Do you wish just to give some brief comments or just your impressions about the survey? Just representing the executive branch or the executive aspect of the survey. Or any other representative from the executive? We already heard from the Mheshimiwa representing the assembly. If you'd wish to add anything else, you're welcome to add something. I don't know if there's a representative from the County Assembly Forum or the County Council of Governors. All right. There was a representative from the Auditor General, Office of the Auditor General. Any insights or just overview or brief remarks you would wish to just make on the study?
Thank you. Just hold on. And thank you very much, Ridian. My name is Francis Gishure. I'm representing the Auditor General, and I want to send her apologies. She would have liked to be with you in this meeting, but due to official engagement, he was not able to attend. But I'm representing her, and I've been here all through, listening to your report, and I'm very much impressed because some of the issues that you have captured there, we are also going to pick them as we carry out our oversight role. And I'm also impressed by the issue of public participation because that has always been a major issue in terms of the public participation, which is defined in the Constitution. And the issue here is, yes, it is there and it has been there, but what about the content of that public participation? You find people have participated in a given forum, but the details and the content and the outcome of that public participation, is it enhancing the governance in the whole process? I am impressed by your study. We have not studied the report. We are going to study it, and I'll pass the message to the Auditor General, who I know he is going to borrow a lot in your report. Otherwise, thank you very much, and thank you for all the participants.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gishure, for those insights. Controller, Office of the Controller of Budget. Any further insights or remarks you'd wish to make? Just general remarks. Okay. I know we have representation from various civil society organizations across the different counties. I had seen somebody from Mombasa, from Kwale. Your insights, representative from Kwale. Bwana Lukoba, your hand is up. You have the floor.
Thank you so much, Sheila Masinde, TI, and all the people that have been on this platform for this very important launch of this document. My name is Gilbert Luhoba. I'm representing the Secretary and CEO of ESCC. ESCC and TI work very, very closely together. This is a very good document. It has many, many components that intersect with the work that ESCC does, especially gift register. And I've listened to many others, including even the issues of integrity assurance officers. There are many, many areas where we shall continue to work together in being able to realize some of these recommendations. So mine is just to apologize that the CEO is not himself here because of other prior engagements, but I'm representing him. And I've sat through and listened, and there are many other things that we'll do backstage in terms of realizing some of these findings and the recommendations. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Luhoba from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. CSOs from Mombasa, I think I'd also seen Kiambu. All right then. Pauline, we are flying blind here. We did not. Not everybody was able to put their name and the organization they represent in the chat box. So apologies if I'm not able to accurately call on your institution. But it's still fine. We are all here together. I've posted on the chat where to access the portal. Once again, just as Lillian had directed us earlier, and where to access the reports. So please feel free to access the report and the portal. I hand it over back to Lillian for the final session of this of the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Harriet, for moderating that session, and thank you to everyone for the active participation. Thank you for your feedback, your comments, your questions. We have taken it all. We have noted it all, and we've taken it into consideration. So thank you for your participation in that interactive session. So as at now, I think what remains is this is a virtual launch. I think what remains is to declare the report launched. So I'm going to hand over to Sheila to take the honors. Sheila.
Thank you very much, Lillian. I'm really at a loss how to do this virtually because we're so used to having physical launches, and you have the what is it? The what are they called, Harriet? Those yeah, the balloons and all those things.
The confetti.
Yes.
Drum rolls.
So just imagine. I don't know whether there's any emoji or any effects that Zoom. I think Zoom or these other platforms now need to have. Those.
Yeah. Yes. The reactions. Yes, there are reactions.
Yeah. So yeah, but we have reactions. So perhaps I guess it's to play around with the different reactions we have. I will just imagine that there is confetti and balloons and all those other things going on behind me. But also just to prove to you, yes, now we're talking. Thank you. Just to demonstrate for sure, it's not just on air, but it's actually on paper. So there we have our county governance status report for 2019, because we conducted the study last year, only just launching it this year due to the challenges I had raised with the pandemic. But here it is on paper. I'm sure you have the link, and we will be disseminating. We have printed a number of copies, and as I mentioned, we'll be going into just a drive to disseminate it across the different counties, with the county executives, the county assemblies, all the county structures, the oversight institutions. And we'll also look for opportunities to come and meet with you as representatives of the county government, representatives of oversight institutions, with civil society as well, to see how we can work together to be able to follow up and push these recommendations so that we can see greater levels of transparency, accountability, integrity, and improved service delivery across the county, as highlighted in the report. So there you have it. I now declare the county governance status report for 2019 officially launched. Please feel free to disseminate it as widely as possible among your colleagues and your and other contacts and associates, and continue to engage us. We are still live on Twitter and on Facebook, and even on just reach out. Feel free to reach out to any of us in case there are any other questions or clarifications that come to mind as you deeply interact with this report. But we thank you very much for your participation. Lillian, can I go to the next?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. I see. Yes, I see more confetti going on the screen. Thank you very much. But really, that's the joy we feel, and I'm sure colleagues like Fidi, Harriet, and Lillian feel relief. You know, when you know that you're sitting on information that the country should have. I think you feel a bit stressed sometimes and anxious. When are you getting this report out? But I'm sure that we have lifted a burden off their shoulder because this report is now out, and I'm sure what you can see on the screen is exactly the kind of emotion that is running across their minds and hearts. So I can go to the closing, and really in closing, I just want to thank all of you for the 2 hours you have dedicated to us to be part of this launch event, and also to hear more about this report. And we look forward, as I mentioned, to further engagement and even your support. You, as the people who have gotten this first-hand opportunity to get the findings and the recommendations of this report, we declare you our champions, our ambassadors, our foot soldiers in regards to pushing for accountability and transparency, integrity at the county level. So we hope that we continue to cooperate with you. But I also just want to acknowledge everyone who ensured that this report actually came to life and breathed life into it. I'll start with the county governments, the county executive, the county assembly, and other staff who supported us. They ensured that the interviews were conducted. They participated as respondents. They also participated in the validation that we conducted. We also want to thank the County Assemblies Forum specifically, because they acted as a key link between TI Kenya and the various county assemblies that we reached out to in the 16 counties. We also want to just acknowledge the special role played by some of the respondents, like the county executives, the county executive committee members, the members of county assemblies, the speakers, the clerks, and also the citizens. We spoke to a number of citizens, and we're really grateful for their patience and their honesty in terms of giving us feedback to this report. We also want to really also thank the staff. As I mentioned, they must be relieved that we have finally have this report out there. And I specifically want to thank Harriet, who's also been the moderator of the day, Fidi Alice, who runs our research docket, and she's really been on this for a whole year, largely because we delayed to get it out due to the pandemic situation. I also want to thank Lillian and some of our, and Isabella as well, who runs our communication and has been busy on Twitter and also hosting the Zoom event, as well as my colleague Eric Wekesa as well. And also some of my former colleagues, including Mercy Chepkemoi. I hope she managed to join us online. And of course, the study would not have been successful. As I mentioned earlier, we got really very good support, both technical, material, and monetary support from the Embassy of Sweden in Nairobi through Diakonia Kenya. And we really, really thank them for all the support that they have given us. And they also supported us in the publication of the 2016 study. So we don't take that support for granted. And to all of you, I want to thank you in advance, because I know you're going to be our ambassadors down there. So we look forward to engagement. So thank you very much. Lillian, back to you.
Thank you, Sheila. So I don't want to water down what Sheila has said. I think at this moment, just maybe to retaliate, thank you for your attendance and your participation. I think this forum is now over. You may leave at your own pleasure. Yeah, the report is available on the website and on the CGSR portal. The links have been provided. Thank you, everyone. Have a good afternoon.
Hi, Lillian.
Thank you.
Yes, Isabel, proceed.
We can download the report. I have shared a link, so participants can download using that link that I've shared.
Thank you, Isabella.